The traditional company is dead.
It's true. AI is replacing entry level, cost cutting is killing the middle, and risk reduction is eroding the top.
And workplace loyalty, never even heard of her.
So what's next? And how can you use this specific moment to elevate your career?
Let's get into it.
Before we get into the pod, Kyle, I did something kind of embarrassing today.
Is that unusual? I feel like you do something embarrassing every day.
Wow. Well, tell me how you really feel. No, today was worse. I sent an email to a big group of people, including my boss and Morning Brew CEO.
I mean, that sounds pretty normal. What's so embarrassing about that?
Well, as soon as I pressed send, I reread the email and realized I was way too informal with my tone. If I had given it like 5 extra seconds of thought, I would have tweaked a few words to make it sound slightly more buttoned up.
Yeah, that's an L. There's nothing worse than sending an email and immediately realizing you made a mistake, but never happens to me.
Well, now that you say it, your emails are always perfect. What's your secret?
Superhuman. It guides you directly where you're working and helps you write clearly, focus on what matters, and turn ideas into real results.
That is exactly what I need.
Yep, Superhuman gives you the confidence that your writing is typo-free, impactful, and on brand. Strike the right tone while keeping your authentic voice so you don't just sound like everyone else.
Unleash your superhuman potential with AI that meets you where you work. You can check out Superhuman for free today at superhuman.com/podcast. That's superhuman.com/podcast. Today's a sad day. We are holding a funeral for the traditional corporate structure.
R.I.P. We hardly knew ye.
Kyle, why don't you talk a little bit about what this specific moment in time is, what's happening here?
Oh, I think we said it best in the intro. If you look at just company structure, it feels like every level is under attack. Early career employees can't even get a job. AI. We have referenced that Stanford study that showed a 13% drop in employment for AI exposed occupations. The middle, year of efficiency. Zuck made the big proclamation maybe a couple years ago now. And we've just seen this relentless attack on middle management, replacing middle managers, firing middle managers, much flatter organizations. So the middle is gone too. And just when you thought, okay, but they could never do anything to the CEO, right? The big dogs? They've come for the big dogs too, Kayla.
Not the big dogs.
Not the big dogs. There is now an emerging trend of co-CEOs. So Spotify made the news starting in January 2026. They're going to move to a co-CEO structure. Netflix has had a co-CEO structure for a while, originally with Reed Hastings and Ted Sarandos. Now it's Ted Sarandos and some other dude, no disrespect to the other dude, don't remember his name. Oracle has co-CEOs or had co-CEOs at one point. KKR has had co-CEOs since 2021. So it feels like the business has gotten so complex and it feels like maybe one person shouldn't be able to handle it all or can't handle it all. So even the top is now under attack in some ways. So it's very interesting that it seems like all the levels of a traditional corporate hierarchy are facing some pressures.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like you're seeing all of this get eroded because of basically the same trend, which is technological advancement and economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
is that why you think it is? Like those two?
I do think with these 3 specific things that we're talking about, it's those 2 things.
Yeah. I agree. I think tech and uncertainty is a big piece. I also just think like when we like invented the org chart, it was like around the time of the railroads.
Right.
And like that was like the tech of that time, like railroads, like, oh my God, this is such an innovation. But they were like much like simpler in some ways. And I think now that we have, take Spotify or Netflix, like they're global companies operating all over the world. There's now like online and physical presences for pretty much every single company. I think the complexity of business also is playing a role here.
That's fair.
Where it's almost too much to grasp. And so particularly at the top, you might just need a couple people to figure it out. I don't like the co-CEO trend personally, but I think that's been the reason cited for a lot of these co-CEO moves.
Yeah, I guess I understand that a little bit, but it's also like, then maybe you shouldn't have such a complex company. I don't know.
Stop making so much money everywhere. Like, bring it in. Just chill out.
I feel like this is the natural evolution of decades, if not centuries, of the desire to increase profitability for shareholders. Not to get too like zoom outy or whatever. But I think that when you have this constant need to show growth quarter over quarter, constantly year over year, it adds this pressure to put everyone in the company last. And also to not necessarily think about stakeholders, but to think about shareholders.
Yeah.
So maybe if I can just briefly talk about that. Shareholders are people that have invested in the outcomes of the company, and stakeholders are people that are invested in the outcome of the company, regardless of whether or not they have invested in the shares of the company. So an example of a stakeholder could be an employee. It could be, an individual that lives downriver of the chemical production plant. Like they want to make sure that you're not dumping chemicals into the river because their lives are going to be impacted, even if they haven't necessarily invested directly in the stake of a company.
Right.
And I think that the desire to improve the results for shareholders, whatever, we don't have to like necessarily talk about like the capitalism as it's structured, but I do think that there's this element of like negative effects and impacts on other people, including employees.
Yeah.
And so when we're thinking about cost cutting, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Like AI, we've talked about this in the past. AI can replace our entry-level employees. Man, this is so amazing. We don't need middle managers, really. We can just have the C-suite managing a quadrillion entry-level employees that now don't exist.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just think that when we're trying to cut costs and increase revenue at any expense, you're like shooting yourself in the foot and you're valuing short-term over long-term. And so, of course, this trend is going to reach its natural conclusion, which we can talk about in a second.
Yeah, I do think the short-term versus long-term is a really good point, which is if you are a publicly traded company, like you have short-term quarterly pressures every single quarter, and it's harder to think about the long-term. I used to work for a former CEO of a publicly traded company. He worked 16 years. I think that's like 64 earnings calls. He talked about this all the time. Like you just have such a relentless focus on the next quarter, the next quarter, the next quarter. It's hard to think about the long term. What falls under that long-term plan? It's like employee development, retaining your talent, finding a pipeline for new talent. It's harder to do under those pressures. So I think that's one piece of the puzzle of how this structure is going away. I also think the other one is like, what's been the biggest change in the workforce in the past 10 years? To me, it's been remote work. The pandemic also radically changed how we organize even our employees. We're not even co-located anymore. I think a big part of loyalty was like, can we really fire this guy? Like he's in early and like, I see him all the time. I don't know. Now it's like, oh, can we just turn their Slack off? Like, yeah, we can. So it's made like this transactional nature maybe a little more apparent with the move to remote and hybrid work. So there's all these forces. We're seeing them play on the traditional company. I just kind of brought up loyalty. That I think is the other piece of the puzzle where in the past, there might have been an expectation that you would work for one company for a long time. And maybe this is like a bit of a trope, but you talk to like older people, they're like, yeah, I worked at AT&T for 60 years. Now you have AT&T explicitly saying their CEO had a memo that we're a market-based employer and that we like review your employment contract on those terms, and basically like workplace loyalty is dead. You should not expect to work here forever unless you're always adding value. We're not going to show you that loyalty, and like we almost don't expect you to show us that loyalty either because like you're all job hopping. So that contract seems to have been severed.
Okay, but this is so interesting to me because this is when we saw this, it felt very like newsworthy. It felt very big. But
the memo you're talking
about. The AT&T conversation, basically. But isn't this kind of just like same idea, different words as that like revolutionary Netflix culture deck?
Yeah.
Which was like, we're not a family, we're a sports team. And we, pay well, fire fast, and fire well, basically. Like if you're not adding value to this team, we're going to give you a generous severance package and we're going to tell you to GTFO.
Yeah.
And like, I think that was very like, everyone was like, wow, like this is such an interesting new way to like a revolutionary way to reward employees because
there's a lot of positive sentiment.
Around it, especially when it was in that time of perks. So I think this was the era where like big tech was providing the nap pods and, the like free lunches catered and all this stuff.
I want to push back on that particular point because I think what made the Netflix thing, I love the Netflix thing, so we can talk about this. And if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, Netflix has this great thing called like the Netflix culture deck that Reed Hastings and their head of HR created probably 20 plus years ago now that outlined the Netflix culture, and it took Silicon Valley by storm. Sheryl Sandberg said it's one of the most important documents to come out of the Valley. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. I think there's a lot of good ideas in there, or provocative ideas in there. But they said a great workplace is not nap pods. It's not free lunch. It's stunning colleagues. And so I think that was the turn there where they realized like people aren't coming to work for Meta because you get a free lunch. You want to be surrounded by really smart people that have a shared mission, and you want to be paid well. And that's really what Netflix focused on. So I think that was one of the reasons why that document was so interesting. It was like, oh, right, like we're focused on the wrong things. People don't care about nap pods. They want stunning colleagues.
Right, but I don't think that like if you look at that versus the AT&T or like memo, I think the difference is like Netflix to me didn't signal an end of workplace loyalty.
Correct.
And I think where that, because it's like, yeah, we're not loyal, it's a transaction, but I'm providing you a lot of value and you're providing me as a company a lot of value.
Yeah.
Where I think that's eroding now is that companies are not providing as much value outside of like maybe salary to their employees. And because they're expecting their employees to just bounce.
Yeah.
Basically, so they're not investing in their employees and they're not willing to like basically take a risk on their employees because their employees could leave. And therefore employees are like, why the heck would I take a risk on you? Would I not job hop when I have a better opportunity?
Yeah.
So I think that's one element that is different between the two, but I think it is important to note that they're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think that they are saying the same thing. It's a really good point, but I feel like the tone is very different. Like when I read the Netflix culture deck, I'm inspired. Like I'm a fanboy, and I'll admit my bias here. Like I love that document. I think there's so many great ideas in it, but when I read it, it does feel like you're joining a really great sports team. Yeah, I might not be here forever. Who's to say? Or I might have a long career here, but like they run the place really well. They're going to pay, like in the deck, they say pay people top of market. If they have to ask for a promotion and you're going to give it to them, it's already too late. You should have bumped their salary up already. Like we pay top of market. We hire the smartest people we can. If it's not a good fit, we're going to fire you because like it's not working out. We're going to give you a generous severance package so you land on your feet because like we want our colleagues to be surrounded by other people that have a great fit here. Like they're very clear in signaling the type of culture they want, which I think is very important. A lot of companies' culture statements are so milquetoast and so bland that you actually don't know what they're about until you join. And then you find out, oh, this wasn't the right fit. You kind of have to be spiky in your culture. It should repel some people away, and it should attract the people that want that culture. So when I read the Netflix thing, I'm inspired. I want to join. When I read the AT&T memo, I'm like, this dude's like talking down to me.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even feel like they care about me even when I'm there. And that's where I think the difference is. It's like the tone of the document. Like it doesn't feel like AT&T is like, we're going to build the best team. And if you're a part of this team, we're going to take care of you and we're going to fill you with stunning colleagues. It's going to be great. That's my difference.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, so if we're looking at all these trends, right, the death of workplace loyalty, the erosion of the bottom, the middle, and the top, it's like, what comes next? Like, what is next for corporate structures? I have one, and then I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Okay.
So taking this to its logical conclusion. Kyle, have you heard of
blockchain technology?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's so crazy. No, have you heard of the dead internet theory?
Yeah, that most of the internet is just bots now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So basically the dead internet theory is this idea that there's no people on the internet anymore. It's just like algorithms and bots posting and then commenting on the posts and whatever. And it's like,
it's just you and LLMs.
Yeah, you like get the illusion that there's like this vibrant ecosystem, but the reality is it's robots.
Yeah.
And numbers, zeros and ones.
Yeah.
So I woke up in the middle.
I got to say before you tell me, I am so interested how you tie the dead internet theory to the future work. You got me hooked.
I woke up literally at 5 o'clock this morning and I was like, the dead internet. Okay. I know for a fact I'm not the only person who's ever thought of this. Introducing the dead economy theory.
Ooh.
So
I've never heard that.
I truly woke up this morning. I'm 100% positive that somebody else has thought about this.
Bloomberg's going to pick this up.
Okay. The dead economy theory is this thing that I made up at 5:00 this morning, which is basically the same concept, right? It's like, if you take this to its natural conclusion, when there is no need for people in any single position, it's just bots all the way down, And so it's like, okay, is there going to be this like ecosystem, this environment where AI is entry level, middle, and like top, and maybe there's a few supervisors? It's like, then you don't need, there's this like illusion of activity, but it's just like AI talking to AI. Like, oh yeah, if I've, as a, client facing person, replaced all of my duties with AI, and my AI is talking to their AI, which we've, are my clients' AIs, which we've talked about in the past. It's AI all the way down. Like, why do I even need the person, the salesperson in the first place?
Yeah.
So I don't think that is the likely option, right? Like,
Just putting it on the table.
I'm putting it on the table. And I think that there's a potential for this like dead economy theory to come true if for some reason, we don't really pay attention to what's happening in the next like 10 years.
Yeah.
I could see this happen in, 2036. And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
All right. Well, the dead economy, that's going to get picked up somewhere.
Sure.
I love that. I don't agree.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to predict the future. I would say that every time there is a big technology change, jobs do get displaced. They go away. It tends to happen that other jobs get created because of this technology change, and that, overall the economy grows. That doesn't mean it's not painful for a lot of people whose job does go away. So if I had to bet, just based on the heuristic of what happened in the past is probably going to happen in the future, I would say that this AI stuff is going to replace jobs, but overall it's going to grow the economy because you now have an AI agent. Okay, who's prompting the agent? Who's supervising the agent that they're actually doing the right work? Who's building the connective pieces? It becomes a very different economy where different skills are valued, but I don't think the economy goes away and everyone's like, I don't even work. And if that was the case, it sounds kind of good. European August all year? Sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Sure.
We have universal basic income.
Right.
And now we're chilling.
So
I don't think that's going to happen, but
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen either.
The thing that I also don't think is going to happen that's interesting is different types of wholesale org structure changes. What I mean by this is Zappos, they sold shoes on the internet. They got bought by Amazon for, I think, $1 billion+. Sure. They were like early e-commerce company. They were really innovative, and not only with selling products online at the time, but also how they thought about their org structure. And so they were this scrappy startup. They grew to, I think, 500+, 1,500 some employees. And so they rolled out this thing called holacracy.
Okay.
HOLOCRACY, which is basically no job titles, no managers, no hierarchy. This was their official corporate structure for some time. They've since moved away from this. But basically what you would do is you would form circles with other people at the company. There would be no leader. There'd be no manager. You would collectively decide what type of project you wanted to work on. And then you would complete that project. And then you could go form another circle with another group of people. It was like very project-based work.
Okay.
Totally decentralized. And they went away from it because it didn't really work.
Yeah, that sounds insane.
And so this is maybe my hot take is like the org structure, like the hierarchical org structure we know today is actually good. I don't think, I do think there's marginal improvements we can make to it, and we should talk about those. But I think there's a ton of benefits to having a standard org structure and a standard hierarchy. There's very clear accountability of who's accountable for what. There is this concept of like the buck stops here, which is why I hate co-CEOs. It's like there has to be someone at the end of the day who's responsible for something. And the co-CEOs that like, which one of you is making the call if there is disagreement? So there's accountability. There's clarity about what everyone is supposed to be doing. You get efficiency because people have very specialized roles, and you have this career path. So if I'm an early employee and we haven't removed all the middle managers, I can see in the org structure like, okay, I work hard at this job. I get to this level. I get a little more responsibility. I get a little more pay. I get a little more ownership. And then I work hard and I move to this level. So it gives you a sense of what kind of career path you're on. If I'm working in a holacracy, one, I can't even pronounce the damn thing. Two, where do I get promoted to a different circle? Like, how does pay work?
Right.
How do I know if I'm doing good work? Like I think in a perfect world, we think, oh, we could all come together, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, kudos to Zappos for trying it.
They tried something crazy. Yeah.
So I think there's two things here that you pointed out that are important, which is the accountability and the career trajectory.
Yeah.
I think a third thing is like strategy. Because as a company, if these like circles are all sprinting in different directions, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
And I think like having some kind of like goal, like at Morning Brew, for example, every year it seems has like a theme, a like overarching theme. It's not telling you exactly what you're going to be spending every day doing, but every day should be keeping that theme in mind, right? Like execution, for example.
Yep.
Like this year we've been building a ton. This year we're going to be executing. And so it's about getting everything that we're currently doing perfect. If you have the option then between deciding, should I launch a new thing or should I continue to perfect the old thing? Like we know we have to do execution. Let's perfect the old thing.
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking about that, I totally agree. I also agree that there's general hierarchy that is beneficial for the traditional structure as it exists. One thing that I've kind of been toying with that I think is probably stupid, so I'm sorry in advance, is like if another way besides dead internet theory or whatever to like take this to an extreme or a conclusion is like companies get smaller and smaller because each person can do more stuff. And then like company is person. Like,
yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the one-person company, the one-person unicorn.
Yeah.
You can use AI to do everything else, and so there's going to be someone that builds $1 billion company with one employee.
Sure, but it doesn't even need to be $1 billion. You know, like I think when we're talking about all these different potential org structures that could work, it's like, you know, currently we have influencers. They're a company of one. Their brand is their person. And like, why can't that also apply to the corporate world?
Yeah, I think it can, but I think if you peel behind the layers of an influencer, Mr. Beast has a massive team.
Sure.
Mr. Beast is not
That's
one
true.
person.
Yeah,
Like he has a full production team. He has, he has an ops person. So I think the influencer feels like it's one person to the benefit of their business because it's very human interaction. There's obviously some key person risks in that too, but they are a team. I'm not convinced that you could build a massive business with just one person. Maybe with the combination of automation, AI, and like freelancers, contractors, you could. But I also think that's like a little bit besides the point because I don't think that replaces a lot of bigger businesses. Like Verizon is not going to get replaced by a one-person company. I just think now we have this other opportunity for individuals to make a living as just one person that didn't exist before.
Sure.
And I think that is a good thing. But again, I think that's growing the pie. It's not like taking some of the pie over here and crushing it and moving it over here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So all this to say,
Yeah.
we don't know what's coming next. We have thought about it.
We have no idea. You probably know more than us.
Yeah. But there are some things that we can do today to set ourselves up and set yourself up for whatever comes next, whether it's dead economy or, you know, a holacracy or whatever you said. You know, like there's some things you can do. So what would you suggest people start doing today?
Yeah, and again, I think like we don't know what's coming, but I think as we alluded to in the beginning of this episode, there are a lot of trends that are painting a picture of what the future might feel like. I do think that AI, will continue to play a role and that, a lot of roles will change because of that. I do think there'll be more pressure on middle managers to add value rather than just doing administrative tasks. And I do think that businesses will only grow in complexity, both because they're global, but also because there's now so much interesting technology that they're infusing. So I think we're accurate about the direction things are going, but to make a perfect, prediction is really, really hard. So what would I advise people to do? The first one that comes to mind, as a middle manager, like you are under attack. And I think if you view your role as a middle manager of like collecting what my employees are doing, typing it into a report and sending that to my boss, like you're screwed. And also like those were the worst bosses anyway. Yeah. So like you should get not fired, but like
be different.
Yeah.
Change.
Be different already. I think being a great manager is maybe less important now because you actually have technology that can do the administrative reporting stuff. What is more important than ever is being a great leader. and being able to inspire your team, being able yourself to get in the weeds and fix problems, being able to articulate a clear career path for someone who joins your team, inspiring people with the mission, like that feels like it's missing more than ever. And so I think if you can get really good at that stuff, which is harder to get good at because no one teaches you that. Like no one's going to hand you primal leadership and be like, read this book and learn how to be a great leader. No one's going to tell you to like really perfect your one-on-one meetings and drive change through those. But if you can do those things right now, I think people are clamoring for guidance and clamoring to work under a great leader. So I think that's the opportunity. If you view your job as manager, just collect information and pass that information along, you're shit out of luck.
I agree with that. I have 3 tips. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot and what I'm doing now. But the first thing is really hone your personal brand.
Yes.
So what do people at work know you for? And how are you know? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be posting on LinkedIn. You don't need to start a podcast, although you can.
Stop, though. Both those things sound pretty good.
We're doing both. But what are you known for? What is your branding? And how can you change that, improve that if you want to, like today? So understand what your brand is, where you want to be, and start making changes to that if you can.
And just to double click on this, like, I think that's now more important than ever because in a world where you work for one company for a long time, only your internal brand matters.
Right.
Because you're going to stay at that company. So to rise the ranks, you have to be known internally as someone that can get shit done, that's a great leader, that people like. If that isn't the case anymore and you are job hopping frequently or that workplace loyalty is dead and you might find yourself as a free agent, it doesn't matter what internal people think. It matters what other people external to your company think about you. And if you don't have a personal brand or it doesn't need to be a big personal brand, you don't have connections outside of your work that know how good of a worker you are and can vouch for you, you're going to be really in a difficult spot.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I do also think like right now, as we've been talking about for the last few weeks, you know, we're in a job hugging era. And so your internal brand is also pretty important.
100%. You just have to, it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to do more now.
You have to do both.
Yeah.
Second is, it sounds kind of silly and woo-woo, but like get solid on your values. Like the chances are if any of the things that we've outlined continue to progress, like you're probably going to have to start making some trade-offs. And if you are so solid on what you want out of your life and what values you know, are the most important to you, when those trade-offs inevitably come, it's going to be easier to make decisions. So if you value financial security, now is the time to try and make as much money as possible. If you value following your passions, like, you know, how can you strengthen those ties and network now before you have to maybe make the leap to, you know, become a freelancer or whatever it is. And third, and this is, if I had to add only one thing to my list, it would be this, is work on your in real life community and network. I think for the past, 15 years or whatever, we've gotten as a society very, very good at online. We've gotten very good at remote communities, at finding your niche, in the ether or whatever. And I think especially after the push to remote work and the pandemic and all of that, we've lost a little bit of in real life community and spaces. And with all of the trends being more technological focused, like now is the time to know people in person. So go to those happy hours, like go to those events. If, for example, we just did a trivia night with Morning Brew Daily, and that was like, it filled my cup up like on a work front, like so much. Like it's just so cool to interact with people, like just like normal people. Like it's just like totally easy to be a normal person and like talk to people. And I think that's really important. So those are my 3 tips. It's your personal brand, get solid on your values, and like build an IRL network.
I love it. Your statements reminded me of this kind of these rules of life that I found to be very helpful, and they came from simulated games of like Survivor shows, the show Survivor.
Okay, yeah.
So like they would have these like simulated tournaments of like robots playing Survivor, like whatever.
Sure.
Basically, it was like game theory testing, and there was 3 rules that the winning robot would always follow that like beat all these other strategies. And it was start cooperating. You like should be kind right away. The second is if someone's like not kind to you, you like do tit for tat. And the third is you have a short memory. So if they start cooperating again, you immediately start cooperating. That was the winning strategy. Not to like go, I don't know, full meta, but I think that's a really good strategy for life.
Yeah.
And a really good strategy when you think about workplace loyalty too. Don't start your job being like, these people hate me and they would fire me in a second. And like, I'm going to job hop immediately, because you're kind of manifesting that for yourself. Like the workplace loyalty erosion has been a 2-person job. It's been both increased job hopping, so there's less incentive to train employees who then leave. But then also it's been increased, like, you know, we're going to fire you after 10 years of service because we don't need you anymore. So I think there still are great companies who want to be loyal, who want to invest in you. When we talk about the end of workplace loyalty, the economy is big. There's a ton of companies out there. We're not speaking for all companies. So I think starting with like kind and being like, no, I'm going to cooperate. I think this is a great place to grow my career. You'd be surprised. There's still a lot of great companies out there. Then of course, like if you start getting signs that like they're not really about that life and they're not going to invest in you, like you shouldn't feel bad about job hopping if you need to, but then you should have a short memory. Like your next company might be very different. And so I still think there's a ton of great companies out there that want to invest in you, that you can have a great career at, if that is something that you really want to do. The other thing is, like, I do think it sounds so cliche. You have to be learning like all the time now. Like it is nuts. I feel like what's going on, and I'm really like excited about it because it is really interesting for me to learn about. But if you go back to like farming in like the year 1, you would die and there was like no new invention created about farming. Like you just could keep doing the same thing. Like the plow was not coming for another like 100 years. Now, when you start your career in 5 years, like your job is going to look drastically different. There's gonna be a whole new set of technologies that you have to master. Like the rate of change is going up so fast that if you aren't always learning, you are going to lose to someone that understands the new technologies better than you do. Sure. So I think it's more important now than ever to be abreast of new changes, both in technology, but also leadership styles, in the company structure, in how to motivate people. I think that's just really, really important. So always be learning, as cliche as it sounds.
That is, yeah.
That's my answer.
And to end with another cliche, and I'm pretty sure this is from Game of Thrones, so maybe whatever. Chaos is a ladder. Okay, a career ladder. No, it's like if things are getting crazy, which they kind of feel like they are, this is an opportunity, whether it feels like it right now or not. And so whenever there's chaos, there's opportunities to shine, there's opportunities to prove yourself, there's opportunities to learn and advance, and use this chaos and this time as a way to like set yourself up for whatever comes next.
Right. Change is an opportunity.
Sure.
And I got to put one last plug in for the Netflix culture deck. Just Google Netflix culture deck. You won't regret it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. It's like one of my favorite things. We want to know your strategies for navigating this crazy new corporate landscape. So per my last email at morningbrew.com, please write in. Also, it doesn't even need to be about this episode. We got a lovely email yesterday, like made my day, about someone who's going through some career questions and obstacles, and it felt really good to be connected to you all. So appreciate all your emails. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Help us grow the show. With that being said, should we roll the credits?
Let's do it.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Waogo.
Brittany DeTaco is our audio engineer.
And our president is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week. The traditional company is dead.
It's true. You said that really weird. Is dead.
Is dead.
You said it like
It's
uptoned,
fucking dead.
like you're asking, but